Hello, and welcome to an introduction to StatWizards Excel-based simulator. My name is George Boomer. Join me while we take you on a tour of this extraordinary tool. Our wizard builds Excel-based simulators that give analysts and product managers dazzling new ways to see their markets. Based on results from a discrete choice model, a StatWizard simulator describes a product marketplace where a manager can lay out products, each with its own features and pricing, then instantly see the impact on potential market share. Our simulator wizard builds simulators automatically from any of a variety of sources. William Green's nLogit for nested logit or mixed logit models. Sawtooth Software's choice-based conjoint using hierarchical Bayes with Gibbs sampling. Jay Magidsson's latent gold choice for estimating choice models while identifying market segments. Michael Biolaire's Biogene, a free discrete choice estimation program, and Kenneth Train's Gauss routines for mixed logit. As a special benefit, if you use a different source, we can incorporate it into the simulator at little or no charge. You can select demographic subgroups to see how their preferences differ. Push buttons, powered by VBA code, automate complex analyses such as feature importance, willingness to pay, and price curves. The simulator's look, feel, and ease of use have evolved through many years of client experience and reflect best practices. We'll now take you through a simple example. At the end, we think you'll be impressed. Our example involves a hypothetical shoe company. The shoes they make have three key attributes: fashion, quality, and price. Each of these attributes has a number of levels we want to test. Fashion has two levels: traditional and modern. Quality also has two: standard and high. Price has 5 levels. We put together a number of hypothetical store visits in which we showed respondents products with different combinations of attributes. Subjects were asked to select a product or choose none of these. After collecting and analyzing their responses, we used the simulator wizard to create this, a market simulator. You may recognize the attributes and levels you see in the product marketplace from the last 2 slides. Using these attributes, you set up a product marketplace here and see the results here. You can change product configurations using the drop-down lists for discrete variables or direct entry for continuous variables. If you wanted to see where changes in share come from, click the Track Changes button. This takes a snapshot of your current scenario. Now, any changes you make will be compared to that scenario. For example, we see that changing fashion back to traditional results in a potential share loss of 17.6%. Most of that comes from people who decide they don't want to buy. 5.2% of those who would have picked the high-end shoe now choose the stylish one. 3.7% go for the basic shoe. You can easily remove a product from the marketplace by deleting its package name. This method lets you keep the product configuration in case you want to restore it later to the marketplace. Many analysts like to examine subgroups. That's easy to do with the simulator. First, we use the Track Changes button to take a snapshot of the current scenario. You use drop-down boxes in the segment inclusion table to select subgroups. As you make a selection, cells for excluded items turn gray. The green percentages to the right of the cells show the fraction of the population the selected group represents. You can mix and match selections. By selecting females only, we can explore how young females' preferences differ from those of the population as a whole. In our example, you can see that young females prefer stylish shoes. If you have customer segments, you can focus on them too. Although you can base StatWizards simulators like this one on any methodology, In this case, we used latent goal choice, a technique that identifies segments while building choice models for each one. The customer segments you see here are the ones the technique found. We can select segments the same way as we can with other subgroups. In this case, we see that members of this segment have a much greater preference for our high-end shoe, and they consist mostly of females 40 or older. Let's reset the selections and continue. Other worksheets in the simulator workbook also provide useful functions. The pie chart sheet contains a larger version of the chart we saw in smaller form on the main sheet. You can copy and paste the chart into other Microsoft Office applications, change the chart's layout, or change formatting in any way you want. Now let's move on to the diffusion sheet. Changes in market potential don't take place right away. They take time to spread through a population. This worksheet takes the volume projection for the leftmost product in the main sheet's product marketplace, the one labeled Your Prod, and shows how adoption might take place over time. The worksheet uses the Bass diffusion model to do this. The Bass diffusion model relies on two coefficients, alpha for external influences and beta for internal influences, both of which you see here. The default values which you see are common ones for many products, but you can replace them with ones of your own or estimate new ones if you like. Now let's move on to the Price Curves tab. You can set prices at any level you want in the main sheet, but a common question is, what price will maximize revenues, profits, or something else? We'll address profits later, but for now we'll maximize revenues. Clicking the Generate Price Curves button solves the model over a range of prices and plots results on the charts that you see. Rising prices increase revenues until fall-off in demand takes over. The price that maximizes revenues for Your Prod, the same Your Prod that we mentioned before, is highlighted in blue. In this case, that's $106. Note that this is the revenue maximizing price in this scenario. Changing the number and configuration of products could affect the result. Also notice that increasing price depresses market share, as you can see in this chart. Makers of Your Prod may want to engage in tactical pricing rather than revenue optimization, perhaps to drive a weak competitor out of the market. This chart and the accompanying table allow you to weigh the trade-off for this strategy explicitly in terms of the marginal loss in revenue for a marginal gain in share. Note that you can modify the plot range by changing the price increment and price cells. If the range includes prices that were not tested in the survey, those prices appear orange. You can also choose to conduct the analysis on a product other than Your Prod or a price other than the default price if your model contains more than one price. We've worked with many analysts over a number of years. We find they tend to ask similar questions of a simulator, sometimes taking days to get answers. The Feature Importance sheet provides answers to these questions instantly. Clicking the Build Charts button unleashes a series of analyses based on the current scenario. A progress indicator at the bottom left corner of the screen tracks the work. In this case, the analysis completes rapidly. Let's take a look at the results. Starting from the current scenario, the wizard solved the model, sequentially varying every attribute through each of its levels, compiling results, and placing them in the columns C and D of the table. The results also appear in charts that can be copied and pasted into other Microsoft Office programs. Willingness to pay calculations are accomplished somewhat differently. Again, starting from the current scenario, each attribute is varied as before, but this time the program uses goal-seek to identify the price that leaves potential market share unchanged. In essence, this calculation represents the value of each level in the current scenario. It's a dynamic rather than static calculation. The results are plotted for your convenience. Where a price variable appears in the table, the section displays with a green font. In place of willingness to pay, the table displays price elasticities calculated for each price level. Among other things, this serves as an important reasonability check on the model's validity. A final question addressed by this sheet is the relative importance of each attribute. Again, the model cycles through each attribute, producing solutions using the strongest and weakest levels. The difference in volume, or lift, displays in the last column of this table. When the process completes, results appear both in the table and in the accompanying chart. Again, the chart can be copied and pasted into PowerPoint or other Office applications. Note that you can conduct this same analysis on subgroups by returning to the main sheet, making drop-down selections in the segment inclusion table as we saw earlier, then returning to this sheet and clicking the Build Charts button again. Let's illustrate. Suppose we want to analyze demand patterns for young females. We isolate the group we want to analyze, just as we did before. Then we return to the Feature Importance sheet and conduct the analysis again. The results, as you can see, are quite different from before. Even the relative importance of attributes differs markedly. Now let's reset our scenario and we'll show you some other features. A relatively simple one is the Scenario Saver. By clicking on the Copy button, you save a copy of the current scenario, for example, a base case scenario. You can restore the scenario to the main sheet by clicking the Paste button. A product manager for your prod might ask, in this scenario, how should I position my product to maximize revenues? The Find Best Product button answers this question. Sharp analysts might realize that if your model contains any discrete variables, this is a mixed integer programming problem. Clicking on the Find Best Product button sets up this problem and solves it using Solver. Let's do that now. First, we see an acknowledgement box. All you need to do here is to click OK. Then we see the solver model itself. You can make any changes you want, but most of the time you can leave things as they are. We'll just click Solve. So now Solver is off and running. This may take some time, so we may just cut this process short. When Solver finishes its task, you have the option of keeping the solution or returning to the starting point. We'll keep the solution. We see that the shoe that generates the most revenue for your prod is one with modern fashion and high quality, priced at $106. Notice that the original values are stored at the side of the marketplace in case you want to restore your original scenario. If you click the Restore Worksheet button, the program asks you whether you want to keep the original values. In this case, we click Yes. The worksheet is cleaned up. To go on, let's restore our worksheet to its original state. We'll do that by copying and pasting the values that we just stored. Now that our worksheet is restored, we can delete the saved configuration. Okay, we're back to where we started. Now we'll show you two other features that can be abused, so we have placed them out of view. However, they're quite powerful, so we want to show them to you. The first feature adds a cost and profit section to the worksheet. The second helps you calibrate the model to a known scenario. Because it uses Excel as a platform, our simulator can be extended in almost unlimited ways. An obvious one is to add costs and profits to the workbook. You could do this by hand, but the button automates the process. Clicking on it does two things. First, it collects all non-price attributes and levels into one place. In this table here, you can enter any assumptions that you might have about fixed and variable costs for each attribute level. Let's assume we have them in another spreadsheet, which will load now. This is our spreadsheet with cost data. Let's copy and paste that into our simulator. Once we enter them into our simulator, you can see that costs are automatically rolled up by the cost detail table and summarized in the rows for potential costs and potential profits. The button we just pressed made another change. It added a profit column to the price curve sheet. Now, if we click Generate Price Curves, the first chart displays the price that maximizes profits as well as revenue. You may have to adjust the scale to see the results. Notice that the need to spread fixed costs leads to different prices for maximizing revenues compared to profits. We can remove the cost information from the workbook just as easily as we added it. That's why we placed the button where we did. We don't want extensive cost information wiped out inadvertently. But because this is an exercise, we can remove cost data without penalty. The second hidden feature is the ability to calibrate the simulator to a given market scenario. As many people have observed, this feature can be easily abused, but used responsibly, it can improve the forecasting accuracy of the model. By default, the calibration feature estimates the adjustment factors needed to replicate a given scenario. Adjustment factors, as the comment displayed here describes, provide ways to incorporate market influences that lie outside the model. The comment lists a number of them. The default calibration method involves estimating the adjustment factors that will replicate shares. This approach has the advantage of letting the analyst further modify the factors to incorporate other extra-model influences. The second approach, aggregate share adjustment, calculates the ratios of actual to target shares and applies the ratios to future simulations. The third approach, respondent weighting, adjusts respondent weights until model shares equal target shares. For now, we'll stick with the default approach. Clicking the Run Calibration button places special formulas on the worksheet and displays a set of instructions. Clicking OK reveals a teal-colored row of cells that let you enter target market shares. Cell M18 helps remind you that the shares should sum to 100%. Let's enter a set of illustrative shares. Purely at random, we'll pick 25%, 20%, 20%, 0, and 35%. To save scrolling, we'll use the keystroke shortcut Alt-C to run the calibration. Solver finds a solution and notifies us what to do next. In this instance, Solver calculated adjustment factors that reproduce shares exactly. In our example, the adjustment factors are all values, but they could have just as easily been formulas that relate groups of similar products or describe some other complex relationship. This is yet another benefit of using Excel as a platform. Returning to our hidden button area, we see that the calibration button has been renamed Clear Work Cells. You could still press Alt-C as a shortcut, but this time we'll click the button to clear the worksheet of extraneous cells, leaving only the calibrated adjustment factors. Our calibrated simulator is now ready to use. Note that restoring the worksheet to its pre-calibration state is easy. Just delete all the adjustment factors. Now that we are back to where we started, we want to show you two final things. First is the target market size. If the simulator wizard weighted your model to publish census data, this number comes from the appropriate census table. The wizard attached a copy of the table along with its sourcing to the workbook as an assumption sheet. You can easily update this table as new information becomes available. Also, if you have a more refined estimate of the target market, you can simply enter it here, and the simulator's calculations will instantly adjust. Finally, the simulator provides you with a convenient place to name your scenario so that you can identify it if saved among different files. That concludes our tour of the StatWizards simulator. We hope you gained an appreciation of what this powerful tool can do. Though the workbook you just saw appears to have been laboriously built by hand, it was actually constructed automatically within a few seconds. To see how this was done, go to our website at www.statwizards.com and download a free trial version of the Simulator Wizard, or see a video on how it works. Thanks for watching.